Hello and welcome again to the Allan Kardec USA channel, where we discuss the doctrine of Spiritism as codified in his writings by Allan Kardec. My name is Ciso. First, I would like to take a moment to thank everyone who has commented on my previous videos, and I am referring to the positive comments and also the negative comments. Negative comments and criticism are sometimes the best way to learn, and it may be very useful in deciding what topic I should talk about next, including the subject that we will be discussing here today. I noticed that quite a few comments criticizing the Spiritist doctrine mentioned the name Satan. For instance, let's take one example, that those who believe that they are communicating with good spirits are actually being misled by Satan, that it is Satan speaking to us, that it is an evil entity, a horrible and evil being called Satan, that communicated the words to Allan Kardec, not the spirits of a higher order, as Allan Kardec had stated is where the communications came from. Let's consider those negative statements logically for a moment. Let's think about this reasonably and logically, specifically with regards to the works of Allan Kardec, which was transcribed from the spirit world, teachings from the spirits, which became what we now call Spiritism. Spiritism has been around for almost 175 years when Allan Kardec's first book was published in the year 1857. From the beginning, we have been taught from those works of Spiritism to be kind to others, to not hold hatred in our hearts, to treat others the way we want to be treated, to engage in charitable work, to help feed the needy, the homeless, the hungry. That charity is our main objective. Does this sound like something that Satan would tell us over the past 175 years, over the course of multiple generations of people that have lived and died? The Spiritist doctrine tells us to follow the teachings of Christ, that we should all live by the examples of what Jesus Christ has taught us. Does that sound like something Satan would tell us to do? Spiritism, once again, that which we believe to be communications from spirits, teaches us to be good, tells us to not steal or kill or harm others, to not be unfaithful, to not be greedy, to be honest. Does this sound like things that Satan would tell us? Because that is what we learn from the Spiritist doctrine. You know, Jesus was accused of the very same things that Spiritists are being accused of by opponents of Spiritism, that we are possessed by demons. In Mark chapter 3, we see that Jesus was confronted near the start of his ministry by not only the Pharisees, referred to here as teachers of the law, but also his own family thought that he was losing his mind. And the teachers of the law who came down from Jerusalem said, "He is possessed by Beelzebul." Beelzebul is just another name for the devil or a demon or Satan. And Jesus replied, "How can Satan drive out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. If a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan opposes himself and is divided, he cannot stand. His end has come." Jesus is talking about how it is possible that he is working for Satan if he is telling everyone to stay away from Satan. That doesn't make sense. This is exactly the logic that I am talking about. If Satan is telling us Spiritists to listen to God and to listen to Jesus and to not listen to him, to disobey him, how does that make any sense? It doesn't. It's totally illogical. One major point put forth by churches, such as the Christian church, for example, is how Satan is a master at deception and will pretend to be someone that we can trust, someone that we like. But if Satan has been telling spiritists, whom believe that they are receiving knowledge from good spirits, from the spirit world, that we should follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, and has been telling us this for about 175 years, I don't see how that's going to work out for Satan, when his main objective is for us to ruin our souls, drive us away from God and into his world that the church calls purgatory or hell. The church will often use the scriptures from 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 14 to illustrate that point, which reads, "For Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light." Opponents of Spiritism use this to let us know that Satan will pretend to be someone we like and trust. And because of that, we will do as he says. Now, I'm basing all this on whatever your view of Satan is. If you ask a Spiritist, someone who has devoutly studied the works of Kardec and the Spiritist Doctrine, does Satan exist? The answer to that is yes and no. Something that I've discussed in previous videos, as I have said. In the spirit world, there are many levels of good and bad spirits, just as there are the same levels of good and bad humans on earth. There are good spirits and bad spirits. There are ignorant and malevolent spirits. There are very smart spirits, and there are some that are not very knowledgeable at all about anything. There are very kind and wonderful spirits, leading up to those that are pure, what some might refer to as angels. And at the lowest order, there are extremely evil spirits, what we might refer to as monsters or demons. We have them here on this world too, in human form. The murderers, rapists, child molesters, and so on. For Spiritists, those extremely evil spirits are what others might refer to as Satan. So yes, in a sense, if that is the term you want to use, Satan does exist. But there are, in fact, many Satans. And no, there isn't a single individual Satan that was once an angel that fell from grace. Logic tells us that is not possible. Satan, therefore, is an allegory. An allegory is a narrative or visual representation in which a character, place, or event can be interpreted to represent a hidden meaning with moral or political significance. In the Spirits book by Allan Kardec, we see in question 122 the following, explaining how people or spirits are led down the wrong path. From the imperfect spirits who seek to involve and dominate them, and who delight in making them succumb. This is what is represented in the allegory of Satan. That is from the Spirits book. To put it simply, though Spiritists will never really use the name Satan in our discussions, because that name throughout history mostly refers to a single vicious, ugly creature with horns on his head and fangs and a red tail and carrying a pitchfork, who was once a beautiful angel who fell from the grace of God, who in heaven was called Lucifer. As I was saying, to put it simply, Satan is the representation or symbol of all impure, evil spirits. There isn't one individual devil. Unfortunately, however, there are many. The Spirits book explains how humans, since the beginning of time, preferred to rely on an image that they can visualize instead of trying to interpret symbolic meanings. Humans tend to need a picture that they can see with their eyes, or even a picture that they can produce in their minds of whatever is being discussed. It has more of an impact on people when you produce an image with the lesson that is being given. Don't sin, or this guy is going to take your soul and lead you into the fires of hell. And a picture of a monstrous creature is shown to you. Nowhere in the Bible will you find a single scripture that gives a description of what Satan looks like. These images were drawn out for people to see long afterward. The reason the Bible doesn't describe Satan's appearance is because Satan is symbolic. Symbolic. Not a certain being or certain individual or entity. Another reason Satan isn't described is because it is a spirit, a very evil spirit, but a spirit nonetheless. I found an excellent article online at gotquestions.org under the heading, "What Does Satan Look Like?" And it reads, "One problem, and it's a big one, with trying to describe what Satan and demons look like is that they are spirits. Spirits are, by definition, non-physical, and it is impossible to assign physical features to a non-physical entity. As spirit beings, demons do not have noses, eyes, hands, feet, tails, or anything else that we might look for in drafting a description. That's one reason why the Bible never describes Satan's appearance." Well, to say that spirits don't have noses, eyes, hands, and feet is somewhat correct. However, remember that a spirit can appear to you, say as a dear loved one that has passed away, and when they do, they take on the form of the person that you once knew. And in that case, he or she will have eyes and hands and a nose, but in their true spirit form, they do not have them. Here, the Spirit's book explains how Satan is an allegory, a symbol of evil in the world, not a particular individual. As for Satan, it is obvious that he is the personification of evil in allegorical form. Here, once again, we see the word allegory. Because it is impossible to believe in a malevolent being who fights on par against the divinity, and whose sole concern, whose sole purpose, is to contravene God's designs. Since humans need images and figures to impress their imagination, they have depicted incorporeal beings with material forms, endowed with attributes that portray their qualities or defects. And a little further down it reads, "In modern times, humans represent the angels as pure spirits, as radiant beings with white wings, symbolizing purity, while they portray Satan with horns, claws, and other bestial attributes, symbolizing the passions." In Allan Kardec's book, Heaven and Hell, we are presented with the philosophy that proves how a single individual being, known as Satan, is totally illogical. According to the church, Satan, the chief or king of the demons, is not an allegorical personification, is not a symbol of evil, but is a real entity, a real single being, who practices evil exclusively, whereas God practices good exclusively. Let us take him, Satan, the devil, precisely as he is represented. Question: has Satan existed throughout eternity like God, or did he come along later? If he has existed for all eternity, then he would be non-created. He was not created. And therefore, Satan would be equal to God. God, in turn, would no longer be unique, because there would also be a God of evil. But what if Satan came later? In that case, Satan could only be one of God's creatures, one of God's creations. As such, since he practices only evil and is incapable of practicing good and of repenting, God would have had to have created a being devoted exclusively and eternally to evil. However, since evil cannot be the work of God, but of one of his creatures, predestined, ordained, to practice it, God would nonetheless always be its primary author, its creator. And in that case, God would not be infinitely good, because God produced a being knowing full well it was going to be evil. The same applies regarding the evil beings called demons by the church. At this point, I think I've made it clear that Satan, the devil, and demons are a representation of very evil spirits. And that is how they are referred to by us as Spiritists. So let's continue with that for a moment. Can evil spirits harm us? Absolutely they can, but only if you allow them. Remember that we all have our free will to decide. Evil spirits continually try to lead you to be like them. It's very much the same with evil humans. In many cases, they want to try to make others evil like them. If you hang out, for instance, with such people, you will see exactly that. They aren't going to suggest to you to be nice and polite and friendly. They will tempt you to do bad things. Remember that spirits can communicate with anyone. They can communicate with you. The way they do this is by transmitting their thoughts to your mind. And what you should know is that evil spirits are doing this continually to you and everyone else, maybe every day. But it is with our free will that we will decide whether to act out on the suggestions that we are getting from them or ignore them or block them out completely. Don't let this confuse you now. When a murderer, for instance, kills someone and that person later claims, well, the devil made me do it, that is not correct. The devil, or evil spirit is what it is, may have suggested it, but you had your free will and you chose to do it. You decided to do it. No one made you. The devil, evil spirits, can't make you do anything. Can evil spirits harm you physically? Well, not directly. Not in the way that you see in horror movies. That's not possible, because all spirits, including evil spirits, are immaterial beings and cannot act upon matter or material things. So they can't pick up a hammer and hit you with it.
You cannot push spirits around!
But they can transmit the thought for you to do it to yourself or someone else. They might suggest you jump off a roof or shoot yourself. They can transmit those thoughts to your mind. The Medium's book by Allan Kardec will tell you that, in a sense, we are all mediums. We all have the ability to communicate with spirits. You might just not be aware that it is happening regularly and on a daily basis. Fortunately, however, we also have good spirits doing the same thing. Our guardian angels, if you will, countering the thoughts being received by evil spirits. And we are choosing which ones we will listen to and do as that spirit tells us. What did Jesus say about Satan in the Bible? Let's look at Matthew chapter 4, verse 1. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Actually, let's pause here for a moment, because this is very interesting. How the Bible tells us that a spirit led Jesus where he would later be tested by the devil. In other versions of the Bible, that spirit is referred to as the Holy Spirit. So we know that the Spirit is a good spirit. The word spirit appears in this manner many times in the Bible. However, the Christian church and other opponents of Spiritism tells us that we should not allow ourselves to be guided by spirits. Yet here Jesus, and other good men of the Bible before him for that matter, were led by them. And that is okay. A bit contradictory, don't you think? Anyway, back to Jesus in the forest. A bit further down in Matthew, at verse 10, it shows Jesus responding to what we know as an evil spirit by saying, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." In the Bible, Satan is referred to by many different names. The devil, the evil one, Beelzebub or Beelzebul, the prince of demons, and many other names. For us Spiritists, any of those names refer to the low-order spirits that for now have turned to evil. But with time and progress, they will eventually climb out of that condition. One thing that is also learned from Spiritism is that even the most evil spirits, the demons and devils and Satans, if you will, are not souls condemned to suffer for all eternity. Even the most evil of the evil of souls in the spirit world, or humans here on earth for that matter, can progress toward perfection and become highly evolved souls or spirits in the future. It may take them a lot longer, maybe by thousands of reincarnations, but that is what a loving and forgiving God offers to all of us with the plan that God has for us. This is exactly what Jesus is referring to in the book of Luke, chapter 10, verse 18, when he said, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven." Obviously meaning that there will be a time when Satan has ended, or better said, when all evil has ended. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you are alerted when the next video is uploaded. You may also share your comments below, or if you would like to write to me personally, I can be reached at kardecusa@gmail.com. My name is Ciso. Take care and have a blessed day.